Hey, it's Andrew here at BTO Range in Conroe, Texas. Today, it's not a Browning. Looks like one though, doesn't it? It's a Savage. It's a Savage product. This is a Savage model 720, and it looks like a Browning A5 for a reason. They're made under license from Browning by Savage. They were made from 1930 until about 1949, so they made them for 19 years. And it's interesting that the Browning Auto 5, and we've done a video on the Auto 5, and mainly you think of Belgian production and then Japanese production marked as a Browning. But they also licensed the manufacture of this gun to Remington, which was produced as the Model 11 and the Sportsman. They also licensed it to Savage. And that's where the 720 came about. Now, Belgium obviously was having some problems in the late 30s and throughout the 40s, with World War II and all that. So the Savage guns were in production a little before that, produced commercially by Savage beginning in 1930. So dating one of these guns can be a little problematic. The serial number charts don't exist. The Savage records. Now, there is a Savage historian that may be able to help with that, but as far as easily researchable serial number to date correlation on this particular model is just not there. So, Savage did use a date code and an oval on many of their Savage on Savage models, but that didn't start until 1949. So I guess it's conceivable that the very last production of this gun would have that circled date code on it somewhere, but the vast majority doesn't. This one does not. This is the serial number in the 95,000 range. So the easiest way that we have to date this gun is we know because of military production. Savage did produce this gun for the military, and about 15,000 of them were produced for the military, and they're all between the 69,000 to 90,000 serial number range, and they were produced from 1943, 1944 era typically. So with this gun being 95,484, it's probably reasonable to assume 1946, 1947 as an approximate year manufacture. I really don't know any way to cut it down closer to that. So fairly, got a little age on it, and the reason we have it is it came in through our repair shop because it was all gummed up, it was not functional, and our guys were able to get it apart, get all the old gunk out of it, and kind of refurb the inside of it to make it run again. And then we test fired it, and it's all good. It's ready to go back to the customer. So a few things to think about when you are looking at one of these 720s, and they come up. You'll find them in local gun shops or wherever you run across these guns for sale. You're liable to find a 720. And there were later versions of it as well from the 50s also. You have the model 750, 755, 740, 745. All basic guns. Sometimes they have a different receiver configuration. Sometimes the receiver is alloy instead of steel. I mean, there were a bunch of variants of that, but the 720 itself is this basic gun, steel receiver, steel barrel. This one has acid etched engraving on both sides. It's not really engraving, it's just an acid etched pattern on both sides with the Savage trademark and some decoration there. So typical of a commercial gun. So what are you looking for when you're looking at a 720? A lot of the same things apply to the Browning A5, right? It's a long recoil operated gun, so we see it's unloaded, right? We don't have anything in the gun. So when you fire the gun, the barrel comes into the receiver. It's a long recoil gun. So if maybe I can do this. Maybe this will work better. So the barrel, oops, God dang it. The barrel comes into the gun, and then there's a big heavy spring under here that moves the barrel back forward, spring back here that moves the bolt back forward to cycle the gun. So you want to make sure that you have free movement there. There is a bronze friction piece under here and a big spring that that helps all that happen. So we want to make sure the barrel moves freely. If the person selling the gun will let you, it's a good idea to remove the forend, pull the barrel off, and see if all the friction piece and the ring are both there, as well as the spring. So let's do that so I can show you what I'm talking about rather than just talk about it. So it's not uncommon for this to be tight. So an easy way to get that off is just bring that barrel down a little bit. That way we relieve some of the tension on this. Forend comes off. The barrel comes off. And then we have the bronze friction piece and steel ring there. And then the big recoil spring. So now you can get to most of the inside. Taking the whole gun apart takes it apart just about like an A5 does. So on the 720s, the barrel is serial numbered. It does match the receiver, so those should match. However, you can buy a 720 barrel, different choke configuration, and of course that serial number wouldn't match, right? This is a 28-inch barrel, and it's marked 2 3/4-inch chamber. Now they do have choke constriction markings on them in a series of asterisks. It's going to be found on the left side of the barrel, right underneath the Savage Proof, right there. We'll get a still picture of that. So it's 1 asterisk here. That's a full choke. So, and that's going to become important when we talk about fake guns on the military side. So always check for forend cracks. If the barrel is not, if it's either this is on too tightly or too loosely, that can cause the forend to crack right here. Sometimes because of lacquer, it's difficult to see, especially if somebody has put lacquer over it to hide the crack. So pull that forend off and look for the crack on the inside. Can help you see that. So that's an important thing to check. The screw heads, this has, just like the A5, it has the locking screws on both sides of the carrier screws, and here. We have locking screws, make sure they're all present. And then all the other stuff applies. The screw heads getting dinged up, all that type of stuff. So we see a lot of cracks in the sides of the buttstocks because they're not, they're allowed to get loose and still fired. Buttstocks on these guns do not interchange with Browning A5s. The tangs are different. So they don't really interchange with the Remington 11 either. So you could probably get it to work, but it wouldn't be right. But the stocks are available. You can find them on the used market or from the obsolete parts suppliers. So what else do we have with the 720? There is a military component to it. Like I said, about 15,000 of these guns. And they do have the military markings. They have the flaming bomb with the U.S. They have the P-proof marks. And they're all going to be on the side of the receiver on this other side opposite the ejection port. And you'll see a P marking on the barrel. Now, they sold the majority of guns that were sold in, they went to the U.S. Army Air Corps and to the Department of the Navy and a lot of Marine Corps usage. But naval gunners and people were taught aerial shooting. In other words, how to lead a flying object. Much like duck hunting, you have to lead the plane when you're shooting at it. So they used shotguns for that. They used Remington Model 11s. They used Savage 720s. They used Model 12s. They used a manner of shotguns for that. So there were 2 configurations of the 720 that were sold. Most of them were the aerial gunner thing, 24, 26-inch barrels. But they were all improved cylinder choke, 4 asterisks. So you would have the military proofing here, and instead of 1 asterisk, you would have 4 on the barrel. Most of those military guns were sold in that configuration. There were short barrel 20-inch riot guns that were sold as well. And a lot of them were used for military installation guards, stateside things of that nature. Those are maybe 1,500 of those. So they're rare and they're collectible for the military collector market. And unfortunately, it is a bit of a it's fraud, it's what it is. But people that have one of the lesser desirable aerial guns, the longer guns that still have all the markings on it, all the military markings, unscrupulous people will cut those barrels and then try to pass them off as the more rare, more desirable trench model. Quick way to find that out: if it's got 4 asterisks here, it's not right. It's not a riot gun if it has those 4 asterisks there. And buy accordingly or don't buy accordingly for that. So, and just recently, in fact, just this morning, I looked at the closed auction on Gunbroker, and there were quite a few military Mark 720s on there that had not been cut. They still had the long barrel, but they were being advertised as the riot gun. And that's, I don't think they're being fraudulent about it. They just didn't know, the seller didn't know the difference. So just be aware of that. Be aware that those are out there, and use caution with that. So what do these things bring now? Well, let's talk about when they do break. This spring and the spring that goes in here are identical to the Browning A5s. So if you buy one and you're going to shoot it, I would replace that spring for sure. I would replace the action spring that lives in the tube and the buttstock, just because those springs are 80 years old and probably time for them to be redone. These are being remade. It's not that difficult to find. Bear in mind that the Auto 512 Magnum spring is different, so make sure it's the 12 gauge spring. This is the same part as in a Browning, so I mean, that's easily sourced also. Other parts on the inside, maybe not. The locking block is different because of the ridge. The 720 never had a 2-piece carrier. Could it be fitted? Maybe. I've never tried it, so I'm not 100% sure that it could. The screws probably won't interchange. They may between the Remington and the Savage, but not the Browning and the Savage. So it can be. The good news is there's plenty of parts for the 720. So if you do have interior part breakage or problems, then they're fairly easy to do. Barrels, on another hand, are different because the Savage 720 has 1 extractor and the Browning has 2. So typically Browning barrels aren't going to work because of this receiver extension. Browning barrels really aren't going to work because there's not a cut here for that second extractor. So the Browning barrels typically aren't going to work. You may be able to make Remington barrels work. I mean, there's a lot of adjusting and moving around, but 720 barrels can be found. Typically, you can even find them on eBay if you need to source another barrel for it. It's not that hard to do. There's really no reason to try to put a Remington 11 or a Browning A5 barrel on this, or vice versa for that matter. There's no reason to really try to switch those out. So you find these guns quite a bit with cuts, compensators, or aftermarket external chokes on them. Typically, that's an aftermarket thing. If the gun has choke markings here on the side, it would not have had an adjustable choke fitted at Savage. That would be done aftermarket. So, what's the value of these guns? The good news is they are not that expensive on the used market. The Savage 720, this commercial Savage 720s, typically less than $300, maybe. And a lot of times you can source them for less than that because a lot of them have a bunch of wear on them. This one, for example, I mean, we have an exceptionally crusty old Pottmeyer pad that's all completely dry rotted and unusable. And we suggested that the customer allow us to replace the pad. He didn't want to do it. So, I mean, his gun, he can do what he wants with it. It's not going to be fun to shoot. One of my guys that testified it said he didn't enjoy it a whole lot. So, the military guns, the aerial, and the longer barrel version of the military gun with the correct markings, we see those running in that $600 range. Really, really crisp ones can bring more than that. a true riot gun with the short barrel can be significantly more, over $1,000. And I think there was one at one of the major auction houses that still had the original packaging, and that went for like $3,000. I mean, they're extremely rare in that configuration. So other than that, it's an A5 clone, just like the Remington 11. It doesn't have the magazine cut off over here that the Browning does. That was specifically a Browning thing. None of the other licensed copies of the Auto 5 had that. So forends typically will interchange or can be fitted. Bear in mind that the Auto 5 Magnum forend is a little different. It won't work. Stocks typically no. So there's a little bit of a challenge in sourcing parts for this gun, but not terribly so. The original parts can still be had fairly reasonably, and it's the shotgun in and of itself is a reasonable way to get into the long action Browning style gun without paying just a bunch of money. But I thought it was an interesting gun to bring out. If we come up with one of the later 1950s guns, particularly the alloy guns that have different color receivers, we'll certainly bring those and do another video on them. So that's the Savage 720. We're estimating 1946, maybe 1947 on this gun based on serial number. If you like what we're doing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Let us know if you've run across one of these Savage 720s in the wild, or if you've shot one, what your experiences are with it. We like reading that kind of stuff, and we respond to them. Hit that little notification bell, notify you when we drop new videos out there, and we will see you on the next one.